when Fu Jinchen's flight landed. I was steeping floral tea in a suburban hot spring villa. A pop-up entertainment news notification appeared on my phone. The accompanying photo showed him holding by Ruashi's hand, the two of them laughing brightly beneath the auroras in Iceland. The headline read, President Fu travels to the polar night with his beauty. Divine love sparks envy. The heat at my fingertips suddenly went cold. Droplets formed on the glass and slid onto the back of my hand like the worthless tears shed during 3 years of marriage. I flipped my phone face down on the stone table, and from a distance came the housekeeper, Mrs. Chen's voice. Mississippi director, when's video call is coming through. He answered the video call, and his father when Jean Hai's face appeared on the screen. The white at his temples had increased since the last time they met. Wan, have you confronted that brat? Fu Jinchen, my private jet is already on the tarmac waiting and can take you home at any time. I stirred the rose tea in my cup. The petals unfurled in the water, just like how I've bowed in compromise at the Fu family for the past 3 years. Dad, wait a little longer. I have to make him know how big a loss it is to lose me. I hung up and my phone rang again. It was housekeeper Lu from the Fu family's old residence. Her voice was choked with tears. Very low. Miss Wenwan, Mr. Fu and that miss have already arrived at the villa gate. Are you really not coming back to see them? What you've done for the Fu family these 3 years. I remember it all in my heart. I smiled faintly. Lu, thank you. The note I left is in the study drawer. Please don't tell Fu Jinchen that I contacted you. After hanging up, I got up and went to the dressing room, looking at myself in the mirror. The silk cheongsam I'm wearing was the wedding anniversary gift Fu Jinchen gave me last year. When he tossed it to me, he said, the mall's salesperson recommended it. It should suit you, not knowing I'm allergic to silk. For 3 years, I wore it to countless banquets, each time scratching the palms of my hands secretly because of the itch, just to keep up the appearance of the good wife in front of him and that limited edition bracelet on by Ruaxi's wrist. I saw it in Fu Jinchen's purchase records. He ordered it 3 months in advance with the note surprise for Ruaxi's birthday in the evening. Maid Chin ran and holding my phone. Mississippi, Mr. Fu's calls are blowing up the phone. There are over 20 missed calls, all from him. I took the phone. The word husband still glowed on the screen. It's what he insisted I save him as 3 years ago. My fingertip hovered over the answer button, but in the end I pressed power off. 3 years ago his startup failed. I took out the 50 million dowry my mother left to help him through. His stomach was bad, so I got up at 5:00 every morning to make nourishing porridge, when by Ruaxi deliberately smashed my mother's heirloom celadone vase. I laughed and said, it's fine, then hid in the bathroom and cried for half an hour. But everything I did could not compete with one sentence from Ruaxi. Jinchen, I'm depressed. Inside the Fu family villa it was a mess. Maid Lu trembled as she looked at the briefcase Fu Jinchen had thrown to the floor. He stood in the center of the living room, his tie crooked, disbelief written all over his face. What did you say? She left. When did she leave? Maid. Lu clutched the dish towel, her voice shaking. Mr. Fu, it was the afternoon you and Miss flew to Iceland. Miss, when Ruashi carried 2 suitcases and said she was going to clear her head, leaving a note. I thought she was upset and would come to find you. But I called her every day for 10 days, and the number had already been disconnected. Ruaxi linked her arm through Fu Jinchen's, feigning concern as she spoke. Jinchenji, it's all my fault. If I hadn't gotten sick, you wouldn't have gone to Iceland with me, and when Ruashi wouldn't have been upset. Why don't we go find her now? I'll explain everything to her. Fu Jinchen frowned and pushed her away, his tone impatient. Stay where you are. Don't make a scene. He turned and ran toward the study. By time Ruashi stood frozen. The fragile look on her face instantly collapsed, and her eyes filled with venomous resentment. In the study, Fu Jingshen rummaged through every drawer and finally found that note at the very bottom of the desk. The handwriting was the neat, familiar script he knew. Fu Jingshin, 3 years of marriage. All ties severed. The 50 million you owe me will be recovered through formal financial channels. The celadone vase, a keepsake from my mother, was broken by Bairuashi. I have filed a police report. From now on our paths shall not cross. Do not ask after the past, be it long or short. 50 million. Fu Jingshin froze, the note slipping from his hand to the floor. He suddenly remembered back when the funding had collapsed 3 years ago. Mr. Zhang had said, "It's money I lent you. No need to rush repayment." Now he realized it hadn't been Mr. Zhang's loan at all. When Ruan had used her dowry to save him, he staggered to the safe, entered the code, and opened it only to find it empty. It used to hold Ruan's jewelry box and her bank cards. Now they were all gone. Only an empty wooden box remained, a keepsake left by Ruan's mother, which originally held a family jade pendant. The last time Bairuashi visited, she said if she liked it, she would take it, and when Ruan had smiled and said, "If Ruashi likes it, it's yours." When Ruan, Fu Jingshin roared, punching the safe. The knuckles of his hand instantly reddened. He fished out his phone and frantically dialed Ruan's number. But the earpiece only returned a cold, automated message. "The number you have dialed has been suspended." He sent a WeChat message, and a red exclamation mark flashed glaringly. He had been blocked by Ruashi, walked into the study, and, seeing Fu Jingshin in a daze, felt a jolt of alarm and hurried forward. "Jingshin-ji, don't be angry. Sister Ruan may have acted on impulse. Shall I help you contact her friends and ask?" Fu Jingshin abruptly turned his head to look at her, his gaze carrying an unprecedented scrutiny. "Ruaxi, 3 years ago when my company was short on money, did you tell Wenru and that I didn't want her money and her mother's jade pendant? Did you take it on purpose?" Bye. Ruaxi's face went pale in an instant, her eyes darting. "Jean Shinji, how can you say that about me? I only thought Wenru and's pendant was beautiful. She voluntarily gave it to me. As for the money, why would I interfere in your matters with her?" As she spoke, her eyes reddened, tears falling like beads with snap threads. "Did Nurse Lu tell you something? She's always favored Wenru. She must have been the one stirring up trouble between us." Fu Jingshin watched her sobbing, and irritation surged up inside him again. He waved his hand. "All right, stop crying. Go pack your things and stay in your own apartment for a few days." Bairuaxi looked at him in disbelief. "Jean Shinji, you're kicking me out just because," Wenru laughed. "It's not that I'm kicking you out. It's just that the company is very busy right now and I need quiet." Fu Jingshin's tone softened a bit, but his stance was resolute. Bairuaxi bit her lip, her heart aching with resentment, but she could only nod. "Then I'll stay in the apartment. If you need anything, call me anytime." After Bairuaxi left, Fu Jingshin sat on the study floor looking at the documents scattered around. There were meeting minutes when Ruan had helped him organize, her handwriting graceful and the key points circled in red. There were his travel itineraries for each business trip, which she had marked in advance with the local weather and precautions. And there was a photo of him vomiting terribly after getting drunk, taken by Wenru with a note on the back that read, "Fu Jingshin, if you drink this much again, don't expect to get into the house." The handwriting teasing, yet hiding concern. The phone suddenly rang. It was the company's finance director. Fu Jingshin answered. The other party's voice was panicked. "Mr. Fu, bad news. 3 of the company's core accounts have suddenly been frozen. It says when group filed for asset preservation, and several partners have suddenly sent letters terminating cooperation, claiming we've breached the contract." When Group Fu Jingshin shot to his feet, his mind buzzing. Which from Group, it's the country's top Wencheng conglomerate. Their chairman is called Wen Jianhai. I've heard he's Miss Wenruhan's father. The phone in Fu Jingshin's hand clattered to the ground. The screen shattered. He finally understood that the note when Ruhan left, "What you owe me, I'll take back bit by bit," was not empty words. At this moment, I was sitting on the one family's private jet, watching the city's outline shrink outside the window. Madam Chen handed me a cup of warm milk. "Mississippi Mr. Fu just sent you a text saying he knows he was wrong and begging you to come back." I took the phone, unlocked it, and saw that message, followed by a string of "I'm sorry's." I smiled, hit delete, and tossed the phone into the trash can beside me. "Fu Jinchen will settle the debts from these 3 years slowly. What you and by Ruashi owe me, I'll collect both principal and interest down to the last cent." The sound of the phone hitting the floor was especially harsh in the quiet study. Fu Jinchen stared at the cracks on the screen. His mind echoed the finance director's words. "When Jian Hai is Miss, when Ruhan's father." He staggered, bent to pick up the phone. Just as his fingers touched the body, broken glass cut him, a bleeding wound opening. Bright red droplets fell on the screen, spreading into a small, glaring stain. "When corporation," Fu Jinchen murmured, his heart gripped as if by an invisible hand, every breath aching. How could he not know when corporation? It was one of the country's top conglomerates, with businesses across finance, technology, and real estate. In front of Win Corporation, the Fu Group was utterly insignificant. He suddenly recalled when Ruhan married him 3 years ago, saying her parents had died and she was all alone. At the time, he felt pity for her background and showed her a little more compassion. Now he realized it wasn't pity. She simply hadn't bothered to use her family to press him. When Wan gave him 50 million as dowry to help him through his crisis, he accepted it without scruple, thinking it proved his charm and that she was devoted to him. Looking back now, it was a colossal joke. Nurse Lu carried a cup of warm water in, and seeing the mess in the study and the wound on Fu Jinchen's hand, couldn't help but sigh. "Mr. Fu, you should take care of that wound first." Before Miss Wan left, she specifically put Povid 1 iodine and bandages in the medicine box for you. She said you're always accidentally hurting yourself. Fu Jinchen took the cup, his fingers trembling so much that a fair amount of water spilled. He looked at Nurse Lu. "Lu, be honest with me. Over these 3 years, have I been too harsh to Wan?" Nurse Lu set down the medicine box, knelt in front of him to tend his wound, her tone carrying a hint of reproach. "Mr. Fu, I don't mean to meddle, but you've been more than just harsh. Miss Wan gets up before dawn every day to make you breakfast. You said you like Xinjiang buns from the south of the city, and rain or shine, she'd stand in line to buy them herself. When your company meetings ran late, she'd always make late-night meals waiting for you to come home. Sometimes she'd fall asleep on the sofa waiting. Whenever Miss came to the house, she'd either break things or nitpick. But Miss Wan never complained to you once. She just bore it all quietly. When the povidone iodine touched the wound, Fu Jinchen didn't feel pain. His thoughts were entirely on Nurse Lu's words. The details he had ignored now stabbed at his heart like needles, dense and aching. "And there's that other thing." Maid Lu hesitated, then said it anyway. "Last year, when you were sick in the hospital, Miss Wan never took off her clothes to take care of you. She worked herself until she fainted from low blood sugar. But the first thing you asked when you woke up was whether Miss had come to see you. At that moment, Miss Wan was standing in the doorway, tears falling, but she forced them back. Fu Jingshen's throat felt as if something were blocking it. He couldn't utter a word. He remembered last year's hospitalization, when Wan feeding him water with a pale face, and he even complained that her hands were cold and told her not to touch him. Only now did he realize she had collapsed from exhaustion because she was taking care of him. Just then, the villa doorbell rang. Maid Lu went to open the door and soon led 2 men in suits inside. One of them held a document. "May I ask if you are Mr. Fu Jingshen? We are legal counsel for Win Corporation. This is a lawyer's letter entrusted to us by Miss Wan. Please sign for it." Fu Jingxin shot to his feet and snatched the lawyer's letter. The contents of the document were clear. It demanded that he return Wen Ruan's 50 million yuan within 7 days and compensate 500,000 yuan for the damage to the celadone vase. At the bottom, Wen Ruan's signature was neat and forceful, without a hint of hesitation. Is she really going to be this exact with me? Fu Jingxin's voice was hoarse, with a hint of despair. The legal counsel said expressionlessly, Mr. Fu, Ms. Wenwan has said that after 3 years of being husband and wife, she has already spared enough face. If you fail to perform within the stipulated time, Wen Corporation will resolve the matter through legal channels. When that happens, not only will enforcement be compelled, but Fu Corporation's credibility will also be affected. After sending the legal counsel off, Fu Jingxin slumped onto the sofa. He took out his phone and used his backup device to redial Wen Ruan's number, but it still gave a service suspended message. He contacted Wen Ruan's university classmates, but everyone said they hadn't been in touch with her for a long time. Just as Fu Jingxin was at his wit's end, Bai Ruachi suddenly returned. She was carrying an insulated food container. Concern on her face. Jingxin Ji, I heard something happened at the company, so I specially made soup for you. Have some to warm yourself up. Fu Jingxin ignored her, his eyes full of weariness. Bai Ruashi, however, acted as if she hadn't noticed, pouring the soup into a bowl and handing it to him. Jingxenji, don't worry. Although the Wen family group is powerful, that doesn't mean we have no chance. As long as you apologize sincerely to Wen Ruanya, she will definitely forgive you. Fu Jingxin looked up and stared into Bai Ruashi's eyes. Do you really want her to forgive me? Bai Ruashi felt uneasy under his gaze and forced a smile. Of course, I know you still have feelings for Wen Ruanya. Then give me back her mother's jade pendant. Fu Jingxin's tone was very calm, but carried an authority that brooked no doubt. And 3 years ago, when my company was short on cash, did you tell Wen Ruanya that I felt it would be humiliating to accept her dowry to help me? So I didn't want her money. Bai Ruashi's face went deathly pale in an instant, and the bowl in her hand clattered to the floor, soup spilling everywhere. She took a step back, eyes darting. Jingxenji, how could you think that? I didn't. Fu Jingxin sprang up, walked over to her, and pulled a voice recorder out of the drawer. This is the recording of me calling Boss Jiang just now. He told me everything. 3 years ago, you found him and told him to say it was his money that was lent. And you even told Wen Ruanya that I thought her money had a shady origin, telling her not to bring it up again. Bai Ruashi, do you have any more to say? Boss Jiang's voice came through the recorder, clearly confirming Bai Ruashi's actions. Bai Ruashi's defenses completely collapsed. She grabbed Fu Jingxin's arm, crying, Jingxenji, I didn't do it on purpose. I just loved you so much. I was afraid Wen Ruanya would bind you to herself with that money. I was afraid you'd leave me. Fu Jingxin yanked his arm free forcefully, his eyes full of disappointment and anger. You love me. Your so-called love is sowing discord between me and my wife, deceiving me, Bai Ruashi. I must have been blind to believe a woman with a heart like a snake and scorpion. Bai Ruashi fell to the ground, her hair disheveled, looking utterly miserable. She stared at Fu Jingxin with a determined gaze, then suddenly laughed wildly as if she had gone mad. Fu Jingxin, what use is it for you to realize it now? When Ruan is gone, she won't come back. Do you think she really loved you? She was deceiving you from the start. She's not an orphan at all. She's the heiress of the Wen group. She may have married you to swallow up the Fu group. Shut up, Fu Jingxin roared, pointing at the door. Get out. I don't ever want to see you again. But Bai Ruashi didn't leave. She took a jade pendant out of her bag and flung it hard in front of Fu Jingxin. This worthless thing. Who cares about it? Didn't Wen Wan want it? Let her come and take it herself. The pendant fell to the floor and split into 2 pieces. It was a keepsake left by Wen Ruan's mother, Wen Ruan's most precious possession. Fu Jinchen stared at the broken jade on the ground. It felt as if his heart had been struck violently, the pain making it hard to breathe. By Ruashi, you will pay for everything you have done. Fu Jinchen's voice was icy and piercing. From today on, our relationship is completely over. Bai Ruashi looked at Fu Jinchen's cold gaze and knew she had lost him for good. She screamed and rushed out of the villa, still shouting, Fu Jinchen, don't regret this. I won't let it go just like that. After Bai Ruashi left, Fu Jinchen crouched on the ground and carefully picked up the broken jade pieces. He remembered when Wenwan had handed the pendant to Bai Ruashi, the reluctance and restraint in her eyes. He took out his phone, scrolled through every album, and finally found a photo of Wenwan wearing the pendant. In the photo, Wenwan was smiling gently, her eyes seeming to hold stars. At that moment, his phone received a text from an unknown number containing a photo. In the photo, Wenwan stood in front of the Wen Corporation building, dressed in a sharp professional outfit, standing beside Wen Jinhai. The two of them were unveiling a plaque at a ribbon-cutting ceremony. The backdrop read ceremony for Wen Corporation's new president Wen Ruan's inauguration. The text message contained only one sentence. Fu Jingshin, the game has only just begun. The jade pendant, you owe me. I will make Bai Ruashi repay 100-fold. The hand holding the phone kept trembling. He finally understood that Wenwan had never been the fragile woman who needed his protection. She was a phoenix soaring high in the sky who had dimmed all her radiance for him. And he, with his own hands, had pushed her away and nearly destroyed the thing she cherished most. He called his assistant, his tone determined. Immediately get me the best jade restoration master you can find, no matter how much it costs. Have this pendant repaired. Also, prepare a generous gift. I'm going to visit Chairman Wen and President Wen at Wen Corporation. The assistant was momentarily stunned, then hurriedly agreed. Understood, Mr. Fu. I'll arrange it right away. After hanging up, Fu Jingshin stared at the sky outside the window. He knew it would be hard to win Wenwan back, perhaps even impossible, but he didn't want to give up. Even if it was to make up for the debt of the past 3 years, he would give it his all. At this moment, in the president's office of Wen Corporation, I read the message Fu Jingshin had sent and curled my lips into a cold smile. Machen walked in. Mississippi Mr. Fu has already contacted the country's most famous jade restoration master and is even prepared to come visit you in person. I put down my phone, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, and looked at the bustling crowd below. Visit me. He's not qualified yet. Tell the security department that if Fu Jingshin dares to come, stop him at the gate. Also, anonymously send the evidence that Bai Ruashi embezzled funds from Fu Corporation to Fu Corporation shareholders. Mei Chin nodded. Yes, miss. I'll handle it right away. Looking at Madame Chen's retreating figure, I picked up the photo frame on the table. Inside was a picture of my mother and me. She was wearing that jade pendant and smiling very gently. I lightly ran my fingers over the frame. Mom, rest assured, I will make those who harmed us pay the price they deserve. Fu Jingshin didn't sleep all night. He carefully placed the broken jade pendant he had picked up into a velvet box, then dug out everything Wenwan had left behind and spread it across the entire study. The sky outside was just beginning to brighten. He stared at the yellowed notebook on the desk, his finger hovering for a long time before he dared to open it gently. This was Wen Ruan's diary, a gift he had given her on her birthday long ago and later forgotten about. He had always assumed Wen Ruan's life was all about daily chores and trivialities, but he hadn't expected that the notebook was filled with countless moments concerning him and with grievances he had never noticed. Today Jingshin said he likes sweet ribs. I practiced 3 times before I got it right. He said it tasted good, and I secretly felt happy all night. If Ruashi came home and broke Mother's celadone vase, I didn't dare tell Jingshin. I was afraid he'd think I was petty. His company has been busy lately. I can't trouble him more. The company's cash flow broke, and Jingshin has been frowning all day. I pawned the jewelry mother left me, plus the dowry, and just managed to scrape together 50 million. Manager Zhang said he'd help keep it from Jingshan. I hope his pride won't be too strong and that he can get through this. Fu Jingshan's fingers brushed over the handwriting. The paper still seemed to hold Wenruan's warmth. Seeing the 3 characters pawn the jewelry, he suddenly remembered the jewelry box full of gems Wenruan had 3 years ago, and how, when he opened it later, many pieces were indeed gone. When he asked her then, Wenruan just smiled and said, I have wearing them, so I put them away. It felt as if a scalding stone blocked his throat. Fu Jingshan coughed hard a few times, but tears fell uncontrollably, splashing onto the diary and smearing the ink. He kept turning the pages. The handwriting grew increasingly messy, betraying an unmistakable exhaustion. Today is Jingshan's birthday. I made his favorite longevity noodles and waited for him all evening. But he came back with Ruashi and said he wanted to spend the birthday with her. Ruashi's cake was my favorite mango flavor, but I couldn't eat a single bite. I passed out from low blood sugar. When I woke up in the hospital, Jingshan was at my bedside, but he asked whether Ruashi had come to see me. I smiled and said she hadn't, and he seemed relieved. It turned out that, in his heart, I could never compare to Ruashi. The aurora in Iceland is beautiful. Jingshan posted to Moments. The photos were taken with Ruashi. Today is our 3rd wedding anniversary. He forgot. The date on the last page is the very day he and Ruashi flew to Iceland. The handwriting is only one short line. Fu Jingshan, I'm tired. Let you go, and let myself go. 2. Wenruan, I'm sorry. Fu Jingshan hugged the diary like a lost child, his shoulders trembling violently. He finally understood that Wenruan's leaving wasn't an impulsive act, but the result of countless accumulated disappointments over 3 years. What he had thought of as a virtuous wife and good mother was merely her humbled, dust-like state within love. At that moment, the assistant's call came through, his tone awkward. President Fu, the jade restoration master, says this pendant is very old and made of a special material. So, it's very difficult to restore. Even if it's repaired, there will be obvious marks. Also, there's news from the Wen Group. Chairman Wen and President Wen are not seeing you, and the security department has been notified not to let you into the Wen building. Fu Jingshan hung up and slumped into his chair. He knew when Ruowen truly did not want to see him again. He got up and went to the wardrobe, opened Wenruan's closet, and her clothes were still hanging there, the faint scent of gardenia not yet gone. He picked up a white dress, the one she wore on their first date, when he praised her as a fairy. Wenruan had blushed and smiled for a long time. At the bottom of the wardrobe was an organizer box. Fu Jingshan opened it and found it filled with his things. His university awards, the old computer he used during his startup days, the medicine Wenruan bought for him every time he caught a cold, even photos from his childhood. He himself had forgotten about these items, but Wenruan had always kept them carefully. Mr. Fu, I brought what you asked for. Aunt Lu came in carrying a cardboard box. These are the things Miss Wenruan left in the storage room. She said if you came looking for her, give this to you. Fu Jingshan quickly opened the box. It was full of documents and receipts. There were his plane tickets and hotel invoices from each business trip, with notes on the back reading. Jingshan's going to Shanghai this time. Remember to bring stomach medicine. And Beijing is cold. Wear an extra layer. There were early financial reports of the Fu Group in which Wenruan had marked many flaws in red pen and attached suggestions for improvement. And there was a medical checkup report, Wenruan's, stating chronic insomnia, moderate depression, dated exactly when he was hospitalized last year and only concerned about Ruashi. Why didn't she tell me? Fu Jingshan held the medical report, his voice choking. Why did she bear everything herself? Aunt Lu sighed. Miss Wenruan said she didn't want to trouble you every time you and Miss Bai argued. She would hide in her room and cry, but she always smiled in front of you. Once, Miss Bai deliberately looped her arm through yours in front of her. Miss Wenwan turned and went to the kitchen to cook. I saw her secretly wipe her tears, and she nearly cut her finger with the knife in her hand. Fu Jinshin's heart ached as if cut by a knife. He remembered last year when Wan cut her finger while cooking. When he asked, when Wan only said she had been careless, and he scolded her for being clumsy. Only now did he realize it had been because Bairuashi had provoked her and she had been distracted. Just then, the company's shareholders suddenly arrived at the villa en masse. Leading them, shareholder Zhang's face was ashen. Fu Jinkin, explain this to us clearly. What exactly is going on? He threw a stack of documents down in front of Fu Jinshin. Someone anonymously sent these to us, claiming Bairuashi embezzled company funds totaling 2 million and used her position for personal gain. Are these true? Fu Jinshin picked up the papers and saw they were filled with Bairuashi's transfer records and receipts along with her chat logs with suppliers. Conclusive evidence. Only then did he understand what Wenwan meant by the game has only just begun. Not only did she intend to take revenge on him, she also wanted Bairuashi to pay the price. It's true. Fu Jinshin's voice was very calm. I'll handle this matter. I'll recover the misappropriated funds and give you all an explanation. Account for it. What we want is a solution. Shareholder Zhang slammed the table in anger. The company's accounts are frozen. Partners are terminating contracts. The stock has plummeted. How do you expect us to explain this? If Miss Wenwan hadn't shown mercy, we'd probably be facing bankruptcy right now. Fu Jinshin suddenly looked up. What do you mean by that? What do you mean? Shareholder Zhang sneered. When corporation's legal counsel approached us and said Miss Wenwan originally intended to file for the Fu company's bankruptcy, but out of 3 years of marital ties, she gave us a chance. If you completely sever ties with Bairuashi, return the public funds she embezzled, and publicly apologize to Miss Wenwan, Wen will lift the asset freeze and may consider continuing to cooperate with us. A flicker of hope ignited in Fu Jinshin's heart. He knew this was when Ruan's last chance for him. He immediately called Bairuashi, but her phone was switched off. He then contacted Bairuaxi's friends and learned that she had grabbed the remaining money and was preparing to go abroad to hide. I won't let her get away. Fu Jinshin's eyes hardened. I'm going to the airport now to stop her and recover the embezzled funds. He was about to leave when his phone received a text from Wenwan containing only an address and one sentence. Bairuaxi is here. Don't disappoint me. Fu Jinshin stared at the message, a rush of mixed emotions churning inside him. He knew Wenwan had been watching his every move. He immediately went to that address with his assistant and lawyer. It was a secluded guest house. When he pushed the door open, Bairuaxi was packing her suitcase. Seeing Fu Jinshin, she turned deathly pale. Jinshin, what are you doing here? Bairuaxi tried to step forward and grab his hand, but Fu Jinshin recoiled in disgust. Return the 2 million you embezzled from the company, and come with me to the police to confess. Fu Jinshin's tone was icy without a trace of warmth. I won't. Bairuaxi screamed as she stepped back. That money was given to me by you willingly. Why should I give it back? Fu Jinshin, you can't do this to me. After all the years we've been together, have you forgotten? Together? Fu Jinshin sneered. Your so-called togetherness is nothing but deceit and betrayal. Bairuaxi, I was blind before to be fooled by you for so long. You caused me to lose Wenwan and drove the company into crisis. And now you want to run? No way. Seeing Fu Jinshin's resolute attitude, Bairuaxi suddenly pulled a fruit knife from her bag and pressed it to her own throat. Fu Jinshin, don't come any closer. If you force me, I'll die in front of you. If I die, you'll owe me forever. Fu Jinshin frowned and signaled his assistant to call the police. Just then, the guest house door was pushed open, and Wenwan and Wen Jinhai walked in. Wenwan wore an all-black professional outfit, her gaze icy as she looked at Bairuashi, as if staring at a petty clown. Bairuashi, do you think dying can threaten anyone? When Ruan's voice was soft but carried a powerful aura, you embezzled public funds, damaged others' property, and are suspected of fraud. Even if you die, those charges won't disappear. Your family will also be implicated because of you. Seeing Wenwan, Bai Ruashi's eyes were full of venomous resentment. Wenwan, it's all you. You ruined me. If it weren't for you, how could Jingshin have treated me like this? You say I ruined you. Wenwan chuckled lightly, took out her phone, and played a recording. This is the recording of you threatening me, telling me to stay away from Fu Jingshin. And this is the video of you admitting you intentionally smashed my mother's celadone vase. Bai Ruashi, what you've done is your own doing. The contents of the recordings and videos drained Bai Ruashi's face of all color. The knife in her hand clattered to the ground, and she collapsed to the floor at that moment. The police arrived and took Bai Ruashi away. Before leaving, Bai Ruashi glared fiercely at Fu Jingshin. Fu Jingshin, I will not let you off. Only Wenwan, Wen Jinhai, and Fu Jingshin remained in the room. Fu Jingshin looked at Wenwan, his eyes full of guilt and remorse. Wenwan, I know I was wrong. Can you give me one more chance? I will make it up to you. I will spend my whole life making it up to you. Wen Jinhai snorted coldly and stood in front of Wenwan. Fu Jingshin, you're not worthy. My daughter suffered 3 years of grievance with you. A simple I was wrong won't make up for it. From today on, stay away from my daughter, or don't blame me for being harsh with you. When Ruan looked at Fu Jingshin, the softness she once had gone, replaced only by cold distance. Fu Jingshin, I'm giving you a chance, not because I still love you, but because I don't want the Fu shareholders to be implicated by your mistakes. What you owe me will be paid with Fu shares. As for us, it ended long ago. She turned and walked away. Fu Jinchuan wanted to step forward to stop her, but was held back by Wen Jinhai's bodyguard. Watching Wenwan's resolute back, Fu Jinchuan's heart sank completely. He knew that this time he had truly lost her. Stepping out of the guest house, Wen Jinhai looked at his daughter's tense profile and sighed. Wan, I'm sorry you had to go through that. When Wan shook her head, a hint of tears flashed in her eyes, but she forced them back quickly. Dad, I'm not wronged. From today on, I'll live only for myself. What Fu Jinchuan and Bai Ruashi owe me, I'll take back bit by bit. Every last thing. The sunlight outside the guest house was particularly harsh. When Wan climbed into the Wen family's Rolls-Royce, and warmth finally returned to her fingertips. When Jinhai handed her a cup of warm ginseng tea, and seeing the lingering redness in her eyes, his voice was full of concern. Wan, leave the rest to me. You rest for a few days. I have put Vice President Shang in charge of the company, so there won't be any trouble. When Wan took the teacup, the rising steam blurred her features. Dad, I'm fine. We can't relax about Fu Jinchuan. His regret now is only because he's lost his backing, not because he's had a real awakening. And those senior shareholders of the Fu Group, on the surface, they seem to be pressuring him to resolve things. But in reality, they're watching and waiting. Once the Wen family withdraws, they'll surely turn and bite us. When Jinhai nodded approvingly, my daughter thinks everything through. Don't worry. I've already had the legal department share transfer agreement. If Fu Jinchuan is sensible and hands over 30% of Fu Group shares, I'll even leave him a way out. If he tries any tricks, I have plenty of ways to make the Fu Group disappear from the business world. No sooner had he finished speaking than when Jinhai's phone rang. It was shareholder Zhang from the Fu Group. He put it on speaker, and Zhang's obsequious voice came through immediately. Director Wen, when would you and Mr. Wen be available? A few of us shareholders would like to invite you both to a meal to have a proper talk about cooperation between the Fu and Wen families. When Jinhai snorted coldly, no need for a meal. Speak plainly. When Fu Jingshin was pawning off her shares to fill holes, why didn't he think to invite me to dinner? Shareholder Zhang's voice instantly turned awkward. Director Wen, that's all a misunderstanding. President Fu was confused for a moment. We old shareholders are on Wen Group's side. As long as we can cooperate with Wen Group, we're willing to support President Wen in his work at Fu Group. Support me. When Wan took over, her tone icy. Shareholder Zhang, 3 years ago when Fu Group's cash flow broke down, I put up 50 million to bail it out. You were the loudest at the board meeting, saying that a woman like me meddling in company affairs had bad intentions. Now, Fu Group is about to collapse, and you come back talking about support. Where in the world does that happen? Zhang was left speechless by the retort. After a long while, he stammered, President Wen, it was my fault before for not recognizing a great person. You are magnanimous. Don't hold it against me. We truly want to cooperate with Wen Group. Whatever terms you propose, we will agree. Terms. When Wan gave a light laugh. My terms are simple. Replace all of Fu Group's management with Wen Group people. You shareholders either sell your shares to Wen Group or wait to go bankrupt alongside Fu Jingshan. If you want to sit back and reap the benefits, not a chance. After hanging up, when Jinhai patted his daughter's shoulder, well said. To deal with these sycophantic types, you have to show some backbone. I've already had someone check Fu's financial records. I refuse to believe Fu Jingshan's been running the company for years without any shady dealings. Meanwhile, in the Fu family villa, Fu Jingshan was staring blankly at the share transfer agreement. His assistant stood to the side, barely daring to breathe. Mr. Fu, the Wens said that if you don't sign the agreement today, they will formally initiate Fu Company's bankruptcy proceedings tomorrow. Also, Bai Ruashi's family just came by and are downstairs at the company causing a scene, demanding compensation from you, saying you put Bai Ruashi in prison. Fu Jingshan violently threw the agreement onto the table, his eyes full of despair. Compensation. I can hardly keep myself safe. What could I possibly pay? He recalled when Ruowen's resolute look when she left. It felt as if his heart were being by countless needles, making it hard to breathe. He picked up his phone and called Wen Ruowen again. This time it went through, but when Ruowen's assistant answered, Mr. Fu, Ms. Wen is in a board meeting and can't take the call. She asked me to tell you that the share transfer agreement is your only option. Stop wasting each other's time. I want to see her. I have something to tell her. Fu Jingshan's voice was pleading. President Wen says there's nothing more to discuss between her and you. The assistant's voice was calm, but carried an unquestionable coldness. If you don't sign, Wen's lawyers will file suit directly with the court, and you won't even be able to keep a single share. After hanging up, Fu Jingshan collapsed into his chair. He knew when Ruowen meant what she said. He picked up the pen, but his hand was shaking. Signing this agreement would mean he would lose the Fu Group completely, lose the fruit of years of his struggle. But he knew even more clearly that if he didn't sign, he wouldn't even have a chance to make amends to Wen Ruowen. Just as he was about to sign, the villa's doorbell rang. He thought it was people from Wen's company and, impatient, shouted, "Let them in." The person who came in wasn't a lawyer from the Wang family, but his mother, Xiao Lan. As soon as Xiao Lan entered, she was wailing and shrieking, Jingshan, you've killed your mother. People from Wen Group just went to our old house saying they're going to seal off my assets. And they say you owe Wen Ruowen 50 million. If it isn't paid, they'll auction my house. Fu Jingshan suddenly stood up. Mom, don't worry. I'll find a way. A way? What way could you possibly find? Xiao Lan grabbed Fu Jingshan's arm, her eyes full of venom. It's all that Wen Ru and that Jinx. I was opposed to you marrying her from the start, but you wouldn't listen. Now look, she not only ran off with your money, she's going to ruin our Fu family. Mom, don't speak of Wen Ruowen like that. Fu Jingshan forcefully shook Xiao Lan's hand off, his tone reproachful. I'm the one who wronged her by Ruashi, and I hurt her. All of this is my own doing. You still defend her. Xiao Lan trembled with anger. I think you've been drugged by her. If she truly cared for you, would she treat you like this? She's an ungrateful wretch. She married into the Fu family for our fortune." Fu Jinchen looked at his mother's unreasonable face, feeling utterly exhausted. He remembered when Wenru and first married into the Fu family. Xiao Lan made life hard for her, forcing her to wash clothes with cold water in the dead of winter, making her get up before dawn every day to cook. Wenru never complained once and always urged him, "Mom is getting old. Let's be more accommodating to her. Mom, do you remember when you were hospitalized 3 years ago?" Fu Jinchen's voice was very calm. "I was on a business trip out of town then. It was Wenru and who tended to you day and night, staying by your side for tasks during the day and sleeping in the hospital corridor at night until she collapsed from exhaustion. After you were discharged, you said you wanted pastries from the old shop in the south of the city. She ran through more than 10 streets in a downpour to get them and came back drenched. And last year for your birthday, you said you wanted a jade bracelet. When Ruin gave you the jade bracelet her mother left her as part of her dowry, and you turned around and gave it to buy Ruwashi, saying when Ru and things weren't worth anything. Mom, be honest with yourself. How has Wenru wronged our Fu family?" Xiao Lan was left speechless by the questioning, her face flushing red, then turning pale. She opened her mouth, wanting to retort, but not a single word came out. After a long while, she stammered, "I didn't do it on purpose. I just think Bai Ruashi is more sensible than Wenruan." "Sensible?" Fu Jingshin sneered. "Her so-called sensibility is stirring up the relationship between us mother and son, squandering your money, and speaking ill of Wenruan in front of you. Mom, you and I were both deceived by her." Just then, Wen Jinhai entered the villa with 2 bodyguards, followed by several court officials in uniform. Seeing Wen Jinhai, Zhao Lan took a step back in fright. "You, what do you think you're doing? I'm telling you, this is the Fu family home. Don't make a scene." Wen Jinhai ignored her entirely and walked straight up to Fu Jingshin, placing a document in front of him. "Fu Jingshin, this is the court's order for property preservation. Your mother's properties and bank accounts have been sealed and frozen. Some of this money was used by you for Wenruan's dowry, and some was misappropriated from company funds by Bairuashi. Now it must be returned to its rightful owners." Zhao Lan screamed, "That's my money. You can't touch my money. Your money." Wen Jinhai looked at her with cold eyes. 3 years ago, you had Wenruan wash clothes in cold water, causing her to develop arthritis. You deliberately tore up her mother's photo and called her an unwanted bastard. You accepted benefits from Bairuashi and targeted her at every turn. Those accounts I haven't even settled with you yet. Now we're only freezing your assets, which is already giving you face." Zhao Lan's face went deathly pale. She looked at the court staff behind Wen Jinhai. Her legs went weak, and she collapsed to the ground. Fu Jingshin watched his mother's humiliating state. Full of guilt, Chairman 1, "It's all my fault. Please don't make things hard for my mother. Take it out on me if there's anything. Take it out on you." Wen Jinhai snorted coldly. "The grievances my daughter suffered aren't something you can erase by saying take it out on me. Fu Jinchin, will you sign the share transfer agreement or not? If you don't sign, not only will your mother's assets be auctioned off, you will also be prosecuted for suspected embezzlement." Fu Jinchin looked at the agreement on the table, then at his mother's slump on the floor, and finally made up his mind. He picked up the pen and signed his name on the agreement. The moment the ink fell, he felt as if he had lost the whole world. When Jinhai picked up the agreement, glanced at it, and nodded in satisfaction. "Good of you to be sensible. From now on, 30% of Fu Corporation's shares belong to Wen. 1. She will become Fu's largest shareholder. You may continue to serve as Fu's CEO, but major company decisions must have Wenruan's approval." Fu Jinchin suddenly looked up. "What did you say? She's coming back to Fu. Why, are you not pleased?" When Jean Hai raised an eyebrow. When Wan is Fu's largest shareholder. What's wrong with her returning to her own company? Besides, given Fu's current situation, no one but Wan can save it. A flicker of hope instantly ignited in Fu Jinchen's heart. He knew that when Ruan's return to the Fu group meant they still had a chance to meet, and he still had the possibility of making it up to her. At this moment, at Wen Group's headquarters, when Wan was discussing the Fu Group's restructuring plan with Vice President Shang. Vice President Shang handed over a document. President Wen, here are the Fu Group's financial statements for the past few years. We found that Fu Jinchen engaged in irregular operations on several projects, and there are several large, unexplained capital flows that were very likely embezzled by him. When Wan flipped through the documents, her gaze growing colder. Investigate. I want a thorough investigation to the end, no matter who is involved. No one can be spared. Also, notify all Fu Group employees. A shareholders' meeting will be held tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. I will personally announce the restructuring plan. Vice President Zhang nodded. Understood. President Wen. I'll arrange it right away. By the way, Fu Jingchen just sent you a message saying he knows he was wrong and hopes you'll give him a chance to reform. When Wan picked up her phone and looked at the message from Fu Jingchen, a cold smile tugging at the corner of her mouth, she deleted the message and threw it into the trash. Tell him if he wants to turn over a new leaf, he should work properly at Fu Corporation and stop thinking those useless thoughts. No sooner had Vice President Zhang left than when Ruan's phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. She answered, and a familiar voice came through. When Ruan, this is Lin Wanqing, your college classmate. I heard you're now the CEO of the Wen Group. I'm truly happy for you. When Wan was momentarily stunned. Lin Wanqing had been her college roommate, and back then the two had fallen out badly because of Bairuashi's instigations. She hadn't expected Lin Wanqing to contact her out of the blue. Thank you, when Wan said, her tone very calm. When Wan, I know I misunderstood you back then. Lin Wanqing's voice carried guilt. Bairuashi told me at the time that you deliberately broke up me and him to marry Fu Jingchen, and that's why I cut ties with you. Later I found out those were all lies Bairuashi made up. She just wanted us to be enemies. When Wan gave a light laugh. It's all in the past. I've long forgotten it. I also know some of Bairuashi's secrets. Lin Wanqing's voice lowered. Back then, she not only lied to you and me, she was also ambiguous with several men at the same time and even misappropriated the school's scholarships. I have evidence. If you need it, I can send it to you. When Ruan's eyes brightened for a moment. Good, thank you. Send me the evidence, and I'll make good use of it. After hanging up, when Wan looked out at the Fu Group building, and her expression hardened, Fu Jingchen, Bairuashi, and those who had once hurt her, she would not spare a single one. Tomorrow's shareholders' meeting would be an important step on her path of revenge. She would make everyone know that when Wan was not to be trifled with, anyone who dared hurt her would have to pay a painful price. At 9:00 the next morning, the Fu Group's shareholders' meeting began on time. Fu Jinchen stood at the conference room door waiting for Wen Wan to arrive. When Wen Wan strode in wearing a sharp white suit and high heels, every eye in the room fell on her. A faint smile played on her face, but her gaze exuded a powerful aura. Watching her, Fu Jinchen felt his heart involuntarily race. He wanted to step forward and greet her, but was stopped by the bodyguards flanking Wen Wan. Wen Wan walked straight to the main seat and sat down, picked up the microphone, and her voice carried clearly throughout the conference room. Shareholders, hello, I'm Wen Wan, the new majority shareholder of the Fu Group. From today on, the Fu Group will enter a new stage of development, and those who have harmed the company's interests must pay the price. When Ruan's voice spread through the conference room via the microphone and reached Fu Jinchen's ears like an icicle striking his heart, he stood where he was, watching the radiant woman at the head seat, suddenly realizing he had never truly known her. The one who used to orbit him and whose eyes always sought his approval had long since died under 3 years of grievance. The woman before him now was the sharp-edged, power-wielding CEO of the Wen Corporation. Shareholder Zhang was the first to react, hastily plastering on a smile. President Wen, young and capable, with you steering Wen Corporation, we old shareholders can rest easy. The other shareholders echoed him, and the atmosphere, so tense a moment ago, instantly turned sycophantic. When Ruan scanned their hypocritical faces and lightly tapped the table with her fingertips, the crisp sound immediately quieted the room. Rest easy. When Ruan laughed softly, flinging a document onto the projection screen. Everyone take a look at this financial report before you say whether you can rest easy. A chart of Fu Corp's cash flows over nearly 3 years appeared on the screen. Several glaring red markers, especially conspicuous. These 3 large expenditures, totaling 87 million, have neither corresponding project contracts nor financial approval processes. Mr. Fu, can you explain? All eyes instantly focused on Fu Jinchen. His face went pale as he took a step forward. These are pre-investments to expand into overseas markets. We just haven't had time to complete the paperwork. Expanding into overseas markets. When Ruan raised an eyebrow, pressed the remote, and a set of chat logs appeared on the screen. According to the information we've uncovered, this money ultimately flowed to by Ruashi's younger brother's entertainment company. Mr. Fu, have you been treating Fu Corporation's funds as chips to woo your mistress? The room erupted. Shareholders whispered to one another, their gazes at Fu Jinchen full of anger. Shareholders Zhang even stood up, pounding the table. Fu Jinchen, how could you do something like this? Our hard-earned money. Was it all squandered by you? Cold sweat beaded on Fu Jinchen's forehead. He wanted to defend himself, but when Ruan's next words left him speechless. What's even more interesting, she said as she brought up another document. This is the equity structure of by Ruashi's younger brother's company. Mr. Fu, you personally hold 40% of the shares. Is this also part of expanding into overseas markets? With the evidence conclusive, Fu Jinchen was utterly silenced. Looking into Ruan's icy eyes, he finally understood that the reason she had called this shareholders' meeting was not to reorganize Fu Corporation at all, but to expose his true nature publicly and let him be ruined in front of everyone. President Wen, what do you think we should do? We'll follow your decision, a shareholder shouted, and the others immediately echoed him. When Wan stood up, her gaze sweeping the room, first, immediately freeze Fu Jinchen's authority at Fu Corporation, suspend his CEO position, and have a team appointed by the Wen family take over daily operations. Second, form a special investigation team to thoroughly audit all of Fu Corporation's financial issues. Anyone involved in embezzlement will be handed over to the judicial authorities. Third, the Wen family will inject 100 million to revive Fu Corporation, but in return, each shareholder's stake will be diluted by 15%. If you do not accept this, you may apply to withdraw your shares now. At those words, the shareholders fell silent. Having their shares diluted hurt, but it was better than watching Fu Corporation go bankrupt, and withdrawing was unrealistic. There was no one to take over the shares now, so withdrawing would mean total loss. Shareholder Jiang was the first to speak. I agree with President Wen's plan. A parasite like Fu Jinchen should be removed, with someone leading. The other shareholders nodded in turn. Fu Jinchen watched the scene, his chest hollowed as if emptied. He wanted to step forward and grab Wen Ruan's hand, but the bodyguards at her side held his shoulders down tight. Wen Ruan, you can't do this to me, he hissed. I know I was wrong. I will recover the money. I will make up for all the losses. Wen Ruan looked down at him with contempt in her eyes. Make up? Fu Jinchen, with what will you make up? With those shares you already mortgaged away. or with that worthless apology of yours. When you embezzled my dowry 3 years ago, did you ever think about today? She turned to her assistant and instructed, "Please escort Mr. Fu out. Don't let him disrupt the meeting." 2 bodyguards escorted Fu Jinchen out. He struggled and looked back, watching when Ruan's cold figure, and finally tears fell. In the corridor, he ran into Zhao, who had rushed over. Seeing her son being led away, Zhao immediately sprang forward. "Let him go. I am the matriarch of the Fu family. Try touching him if you dare." "Matriarch," a bodyguard sneered. "The properties under your name have already been sealed. You don't even have a place to live now, and you still call yourself the Fu family's matriarch." Xiaolan was stunned, then screamed, "Impossible. How could my house be seized? That Wan. She just wants to wipe us out." Fu Jingxin looked at his mother's hysterical state, filled with despair. He knew Wan truly wouldn't give him any more chances this time. After the shareholders' meeting, when Wan returned to Wanshire Group, Deputy General Manager Zhang came in with a document. "President Wen, several of Fu's key project partners just sent word saying they're willing to continue the cooperation, but they demand that Wanshire fully oversee the flow of funds. Also, Fu Jingxin had someone deliver a letter of commitment saying he's willing to transfer his remaining 10% stake to you, begging you to give him a chance to reform." When Wan took the letter of commitment and tossed it into the trash without even looking at it. "I don't care about the shares. Tell Fu Jingxin he must repay the misappropriated company funds within a month, or he can start packing for prison. Also, notify the legal department to prepare a lawsuit against the company owned by Bairuashi's brother to recover the embezzled money." Deputy General Manager Zhang nodded. "Understood, President Wen. By the way, Miss Lin Wanqing has sent over the evidence concerning Bairuashi from back then. It includes records of her embezzling scholarship funds, as well as compromising photos of her with other men." When Wan opened the file and examined the evidence, a cold smile curling at the corner of her mouth. "Bairuashi, did you think hiding behind prison bars would make you safe? This debt hasn't been settled yet." At the same time, Fu Jingxin was sitting in a cafe beneath the Fusher Group building, staring at the news on his phone. When Group President Wen Wan takes over Fusher, undertakes sweeping financial reforms, and former Fusher CEO Fu Jingxin, suspected of embezzlement, suspended. He lifted his coffee cup, but his hand was trembling. The coffee spilled all over the floor. At that moment, his phone rang. It was the prison calling. Bairuashi's voice came through the receiver, trembling with tears. "Jingxinji, please save me. Wen Wan sent people to the prison to find me. She's going to accuse me of fraud. Also, my brother's company has been sued. Please think of something." Fu Jingxin irritably hung up. He could barely keep himself safe now. How could he possibly save Bairuashi? Besides, he felt nothing but disgust for this woman. If it weren't for her, how would he have ended up like this? Just then, he saw Wen Wan walking out of the Fu Group building, followed by several subordinates. She wore a black business suit, walked with composure, and had a faint smile as she discussed work with her team. The sunlight fell on her as if gilding her with a halo. Fu Jingxin immediately stood up and rushed over. When Wan, he blocked her path, his eyes full of pleading. "I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Give me one more chance. I'll get all the money back. I'll work hard. I will." "Mr. Fu," when Ruan's assistant stepped forward, blocking his way, "President Wen still has an important meeting to attend. Please step aside." When Wan looked at him, her gaze without a ripple of emotion. "Fu Jingxin, I've made myself very clear. There's no possibility between us. What you should be doing now is repaying the embezzled company funds as soon as possible. Not pestering me here. I have no money. Fu Jingxin yeldo arsli. You seized all my shares. My assets have been frozen. What can I use to repay? When Wan, you're doing this on purpose. You want me ruined. Want me to have nothing? Nothing. When Juan gave a light laugh. The nothing you have now is of your own making. When you embezzled my dowry 3 years ago, didn't you think this day might come when you and Bai Ruashi teamed up to bully me? Didn't you think this day might come? Fu Jingshin, you brought this on yourself. She turned and walked away. Fu Jingshin wanted to step forward and stop her, but when Ruan's bodyguard blocked him, watching when Ruan's resolute back, Fu Jingshin finally broke down. He crouched on the ground and cried like a child. When Juan slid into the car and, seeing Fu Jingshin's disheveled figure in the rearview mirror, felt not a shred of sympathy. She took out her phone and sent Lin Wanqing a message. Thanks for the evidence. I'll treat you to a meal another day. Lin Wanqing replied quickly. No need to thank me. I only did what I should. When Juan, I wish you all the best. When Juan put down her phone, leaned back in her seat, and closed her eyes, 3 years of grievances had finally yielded a bit of recompense today. But she knew it was far from enough. What Fu Jingshin and Bai Ruashi owed her, she would take back bit by bit. Principal and interest. The car drove smoothly when Vice President Shang suddenly spoke up. President Wen, the CFO of the Fu Group, just contacted us. He says he has more detailed evidence that Fu Jingshin embezzled funds and wants to cooperate with us. His condition is to be exempted from joint liability. When Wan opened her eyes, a sharp glint flashing across her gaze. Bring him to see me. Remember, we only accept people who truthfully confess their issues. If anyone tries to play tricks, don't blame me for being ruthless. All right, President Wen. Vice President Shang nodded. When Wan looked out at the scenery, a determined smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. Fu Jingshin, your good days are over. Next, it will be Bai Ruashi's turn. She would make Bai Ruashi know that anyone who harmed Wenruan, no matter where they hid, could not escape the punishment they deserved. Back at the One family group, Wenruan immediately summoned Fu's chief financial officer. As soon as the CFO entered, he dropped to his knees. President Wen, I was wrong. I shouldn't have helped Fu Jingshin cook the books. I shouldn't have covered up his embezzlement of company funds. Please spare me. I'll tell you everything I know. When Wan motioned for him to stand. Speak. What other violations has Fu Junction committed? Tell me honestly everything you know. I may consider relieving you of joint liability. The CFO hurried to his feet and took a file from his bag. President Wen, these are Fu Junction secret account transactions from the past few years. He not only embezzled company funds to give to Bai Ruashi, but he also kept other mistresses. This money all came from company accounts. Also, on a major project last year, he took a 2 million kickback from a supplier, which led to quality issues and nearly 10 million in losses. When Wan looked over the documents, her expression growing colder, she hadn't expected Fu Junction to be so greedy, so shameless. Is all this evidence real? She asked. They're all true. The finance director hurriedly nodded. I also have the transfer records and chat logs. These can all serve as evidence. When Wan handed the documents to Vice President Shang, immediately organize this evidence, hand it to the legal department, and prepare to sue Fu Junction. Also, notify the media and hold a press conference tomorrow to make Fu Junction's actions public. Understood. President Wen. Vice President Shang took the documents and walked out. The office was left with only Wenruan. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the endless stream of people below, her heart full of emotion. Once, she thought love was everything. For Fu Junction, she had tempered all her edges and willingly became a housewife orbiting him. And what did she get in return? Betrayal and hurt. Now she finally understood that the most reliable thing for a woman was never a man's promises, but her own strength. Only by holding power could she protect herself and make those who had hurt her pay the price. The phone suddenly rang. It was her father, Wen Jinhai. Wan, I heard you did very well at the Fu Corporation shareholders meeting today. You weren't mistreated. were you? When Jean Hai's voice was full of concern. Dad, I'm fine. When Ruan's voice softened considerably. I have already secured evidence that Fu Jingxin embezzled company funds. Tomorrow we're holding a press conference to expose his true colors to the public. Good. Well done. When Jean Hai's voice was full of praise. I'll go with you tomorrow. Whoever dares bully my daughter, I'll be the first to object. When Ruan's eyes were a little wet. Thank you, Dad. After hanging up, when Ruan felt filled with strength, she knew that no matter what difficulty she faced, her father would stand behind her with his support. She had even more confidence to carry this revenge through to the end. The next morning, the Wen group held a press conference. When Ruan attended together with Wen Jinhai, facing the lens of numerous media, when Ruan calmly presented the evidence that Fu Jingxin had embezzled public funds and accepted bribes. In an instant, public opinion roared, and Fu Jingxin was thoroughly disgraced. At this moment, Fu Jingxin was hiding in his rented room, watching the press conference on TV. Filled with despair, he knew his life was completely over. The aftermath of the press conference had hardly settled when Ruan's phone was flooded with inquiry calls from the media. She had her assistant handle them while she held the file the legal department had just delivered, her fingertip tracing the headline by Ruashi. Supplementary evidence of suspected fraud. Her gaze cold as ice. A mess. When word came from the prison, Ruashi is staging a hunger strike and is threatening to see you. Otherwise, she'll go to the media to expose the Fu and family feud. Deputy General Manager Zhang said as he pushed the door open, his tone edged with contempt. She also claims to have evidence that you flattered Fu Jingxin back then and wants to use it to blackmail you into dropping the case. When Ruan laughed softly, then tossed the file onto the desk. She certainly knows how to guilt herself. Tell the prison I'll come see her this afternoon. Also, organize the evidence Lin Wanqing provided and bring it along. At 2:00 in the afternoon, when Wan entered the prison visiting room wearing a sharply tailored gray suit. Through the thick glass, she saw Ruashi looking gaunt. Her once meticulously kept long hair was matted and clung to her face, but those eyes still held their habitual calculation and malice. When Ruan, you finally decided to show up, Ruashi snatched up the handset, her voice hoarse yet still sharp. I know you're riding high now, but don't get smug. I have the photos of you pretending to be virtuous in front of Fu Jingxin so you could marry into the Fu family, and the recording of you begging me not to compete with you for Fu Jingxin. If I release these, your independent woman image will be completely destroyed. When Wan slowly put on her headphones and pushed a file up against the glass. Don't rush to threaten me. Look at this. The file contained bank statements showing Ruashi diverting scholarship funds in college, along with intimate photos of her with different men, each marked with time and place. This evidence is enough to add another 2 years to your sentence. Ruashi's face went ashen in an instant. The hand clutching the handset began to tremble. How do you have these? Lin Wanqing, that traitor. I knew she betrayed me. Traitor. When Wan raised an eyebrow. You were the one who deliberately invented the lie that I stole your boyfriend and incited her to turn against me. Why don't you call yourself the traitor? Ruashi, you've always only seen others' faults and never your own wickedness. She paused, then pushed another document across. This is the bankruptcy liquidation notice for your brother's company. The public funds he embezzled have been recovered through legal channels, and the debts he owes must now be borne jointly by you as his sister. Ruashi's defense has completely collapsed. She pounded on the glass. Impossible. How could my brother go bankrupt? When Ruan, you poisonous woman, it's all your fault. My fault. When Ruan's voice suddenly turned cold. When you smashed my mother's celadone vase 3 years ago, did you ever think this day would come when you used the funds Fu Jingxin embezzled to buy luxury goods? Did you ever think this day would come? Ruaxi, today's outcome is entirely of your own making. She stood up and smoothed her suit jacket. Those pieces of evidence you mentioned, I'd advise you not to release them. Back then, my kindness to Fu Jingxin was sincere, not an act. And the recording you speak of was only my reluctant concession when I could no longer endure. If it gets out, people will only think you keep taking advantage. On the other hand, every piece of evidence I have can keep you in prison much longer. Bai Ruaxi stared at Wen Ruan's resolute back and suddenly screamed. Wen Ruan, don't go. Let's make a deal. I'll tell you about Fu Jingxin's secret account. There's 30 million he embezzled in it. I'll help you recover it if you help reduce my sentence. When Ruan's footsteps stopped, she turned to look at Bai Ruaxi, her eyes full of derision. Now you remember the deal. What have you been doing until now? However, I can consider your proposal. She signaled to the prison guard. Write down what she said and verify the secret account immediately. Outside the prison, when Ruan's phone rang, it was Fu Jingxin. She hesitated for a moment, then answered. A despondent voice came through the receiver. When Ruan, I heard you went to see Bai Ruaxi. Did she tell you anything? Don't believe her. There isn't a truthful word in her mouth. Whether she told the truth, I'll verify it. When Ruan said calmly, Fu Jingxin, Bai Ruaxi said you have a secret account with 30 million in embezzled funds. Is that true? There was a long silence on the other end before Fu Jingxin's strained voice came. It's true. That money was the kickback I took back then. I didn't dare tell you, nor use it. It's been sitting in the secret account. There wasn't a trace of surprising when Ruan's heart. She had long suspected that Fu Jingxin had more tricks up his sleeve. Within 3 days, transfer this sum into Fu Corporation's public account to cover the losses you caused. Her tone carried an authority that brooked no doubt. If you can't do it, I'll have the legal department charge you with embezzlement, and then what you'll face won't be a simple matter of paying money back. I understand. Despair filled Fu Jingxin's voice. Wen Ruan, I truly know I was wrong. Can't you give me one more chance? Even if you let me stay at Fu Corporation as a regular employee, I'm willing. A chance. Wen Ruan let out a light laugh. Did you ever give me a chance? 3 years ago when I begged you not to keep seeing Bai Ruaxi. Did you give me a chance? On the day of my mother's memorial, when you went shopping with Bai Ruaxi and left me kneeling alone at the grave. Did you give me a chance? Fu Jingxin, chances go both ways. You used up the chance I gave you long ago. After hanging up, when Ruan leaned back in the car seat and closed her eyes, she hadn't expected Fu Jingxin to be so insatiable, embezzling funds, taking bribes, even hiding secret accounts. How had she ever been so blind as to fall in love with a man like that? Back at the company, Vice President Shang immediately came in with a document. President 1. We verified that Fu Jingxin does indeed have a secret account with 30 million in deposits. The account holder is a distant relative of his. We've already applied to freeze it. Also, the financial issues at the Fu company have been clarified in addition to what has already been exposed. There were a few small embezzlements totaling 5 million, and we have gathered the evidence. When Ruan nodded, good. Notify the legal department and prepare all the materials to sue Fu Jingxin immediately. Try to get him sent away in one go. Also, how is the Fu company's restructuring plan going? It's nearly finished. Vice President Shang handed over a document. We've cleaned out the internal parasites at the Fu company and promoted several capable young employees. The 100 million investment from the Wen family has already been credited, and several core projects have been restarted. Our partners are very satisfied with our rectification plan. When Ruan flipped through the document, a satisfied smile curling at the corner of her mouth. The Fu Group was founded by Fu Jingxin himself, and now it had become a tool for her revenge. Perhaps this was what people called karma. Just then, her phone received a message from an unknown number. A photo. In the picture, Fu Jingxin and Xiaolan were crouching downstairs at the Fu Group building, holding up a sign that read, Wen Ruan, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. In the background of the photo, many passers-by were watching. and some were taking pictures. When Ruan's expression darkened immediately, she hadn't expected Fu Jingxin to use such a shameless tactic to force her to compromise. She immediately called Vice President Shang, notify security, and have Fu Jingxin and Xiaolan removed from in front of the company building. They must not be allowed to make a scene there. Also, contact PR and prepare to deal with the negative public reaction. Yes, President Wen. I'll take care of it right away. Vice President Shang replied at once. After hanging up, when Wan walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and watched the commotion below, Fu Jingxin and Xiaolan, holding their sign, stood out sharply among the crowd. Xiaolan kept wailing, accusing Wen Ruan of ingratitude and claiming Fu Jingxin had been deceived by Bairuashi. Uninformed passers-by began to speculate and pointed at the Fu Group building. When Ruan's gaze grew colder and colder, she picked up her phone and called the Municipal Public Security Bureau. Hello, is this the police? There's a crowd causing trouble downstairs at the Fu Group building, disrupting public order. Please send someone to deal with it. Before long, the police arrived on the scene and took Fu Jingxin and Xiao Lan away. The onlookers gradually dispersed, and the farce finally ended when Ruan breathed a sigh of relief and was about to sit down when she received a call from her father. Wen Jinhai, Ruan, I heard that brat Fu Jingxin was making a scene under your company's building. Wen Jinhai's voice was full of anger. Why didn't you tell me? I'll send people to teach him a lesson right now. Dad, don't be angry. I've already had the police take him away. When Ruan's voice softened considerably, I can handle this little matter myself. There's no need to trouble you. He can't get away with this. When Jinhai's tone was firm, how could anyone bully my daughter? I've already had people dig up all of Fu Jingxin's dirt. I'll make sure he can't stay in this city. A warmth filled Wen Ruan's heart. Dad, thank you, but I don't want to be entangled with him anymore. Once the lawsuit is over, I'll cut all ties with him. I never want to see him again. All right, as you wish. When Jinhai's tone softened, Wan, come home for dinner tonight. Your mother made your favorite sweet and sour ribs. Okay, I'll definitely be back tonight. A long-lost smile appeared on Wen Ruan's face. After hanging up, Wen Ruan felt much better. She knew that no matter what difficulties arose, her father would always be her strongest support. At 5:00 in the afternoon, the legal department delivered all the materials for suing Fu Jingxin to Wen Ruan's office. Wen Ruan carefully read through them, and after confirming there were no problems, signed her name. Submit them to the court immediately. She told the director of the legal department. Yes, Ms. Wen. The director took the documents and turned to leave. Only when Wan remained in the office. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and watched the sunset outside. The evening glow bathed the city's skyscrapers in a warm golden light. She thought of herself 3 years ago, always waiting for Fu Jingxin to come home under the sunset, her heart full of anticipation. Now, she no longer had to wait for anyone. At last, her world contained only herself. The phone suddenly rang. It was Lin Wanqing calling. Wen Ruan, are you free tonight? I'll treat you to dinner. Consider it a little celebration for you. Lin Wanqing's voice was full of sincerity. When Wan smiled, sorry, Wanqing, I have to go home tonight to have dinner with my parents. Another day, I'll treat you. Okay, let's arrange another day then. Lin Wanqing's voice was full of understanding. When Wan, I heard Fu Jingxin caused a scene outside your company's building. Are you all right? I'm fine. It's already been handled. When Ruan's tone was very relaxed. Thank you for your concern. After hanging up, when Wan packed her things and walked out of the office, she got into the car, looked at the scenery outside the window, and felt completely calm. She knew the road of revenge would soon come to an end, and both Fu Jingxin and Bairuashi would receive the punishment they deserved. And she, too, would begin a brand new life. The car drove through the gates of the one family villa. when Jean Hai and her mother were already waiting for her at the entrance. Her mother hurried forward, grabbed her hand. Wan Wan, you must be exhausted. Come inside quickly. Dinner is all ready. When Wan leaned on her mother's shoulder, her nose prickled, and tears nearly fell. Mom, I miss you so much. Silly child, if you miss Mom, just come home, her mother said, patting her back. Don't carry everything on your own anymore. You have your father and mother at home. When Jean Hai stood to one side, watching the mother and daughter, a relieved smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. All right, come inside and eat. The food's getting cold. They walked into the dining room. The table was full of dishes Wan liked. When Wan picked up her chopsticks, took a piece of sweet and sour pork rib, and put it in her mouth. The familiar taste reminded her of her childhood. Back then, she had been a carefree little princess. No betrayal, no hurt, only her parents' love. Wan, how are things with the Fu matter going? When Jian Hai asked as he served her more food, it's almost done. The materials for suing Fu Jingshan have already been filed with the court. When Wan said calmly, once this is over, I'll transfer Fu's shares and focus on running the Wen Company's business. All right, Dad supports you. When Jian Hai nodded, no matter what you decide, I support you. On the day of the court hearing, fine rain drifted through the sky. When Wan did not attend in person, but entrusted the chief legal officer to act on her behalf. She sat in the president's office of the Wen Group, watching the plane, tree, leaves outside the window being rained on, her fingertips lightly tapping the desk, her heart utterly calm. At 11:00 in the morning, the chief legal officer's call came right on time, his voice barely containing excitement. President Wen, we won. The court found Fu Jingshan guilty of embezzlement and corruption. The sentences were combined, and he was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment by Ruashi, who was convicted of fraud and misappropriation of public funds and sentenced to 4 years. And her brother was sentenced to 2 years for joint crime. Also, Fu Jingshan's secret account funds and the assets of Xiaolan that were seized will all be used to make up for Fu Group's losses. Noted when Ruan's tone was very calm, as if listening to something unrelated to her. Following the judgment, also notify the shareholders of the Fu Group. Hold a meeting this afternoon to announce the Fu Group's follow-up development plan. After hanging up, when Wan stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, the rain had stopped at some point. Sunlight pierced the clouds and poured into the garden below, refracting into a halo of colors. She remembered that rainy night 3 years ago, when she held the shattered pieces of a celadone vase and cried herself breathless in the bathroom, while Fu Jingshan comforted the wronged by Ruashi in the living room. The despair and helplessness of that time have now become badges of growth at the afternoon shareholders meeting when Wan announced a major piece of news. I have decided to transfer my shares in the Fu Group at cost to the company's core employees and promising young shareholders. In addition, the Wen Group will establish a women's entrepreneurship fund specifically to support female entrepreneurs who have suffered setbacks in their careers. With an initial investment of 50 million, the shareholders were first stunned, then burst into enthusiastic applause. Shareholder Zhang said excitedly, Ms. Wen, not only did you save the Fu Group, but you're also thinking of supporting women. We admire your vision. Wen Wan smiled and said nothing more. She wasn't transferring the Fu shares out of magnanimity. To her, the Fu Group had long since become part of the past. Establishing the fund was both a reconciliation with her past and a way to give women who, like her former self, have fallen into difficulty a greater measure of hope. After the meeting, Lin Wanqing sent a WeChat message with a photo attached. In the photo, Fu Jingshan was wearing a prison uniform and handcuffs, his hair more than half gray, his eyes staring blankly at the ground. Xiaolan stood nearby, leaning on a cane, looking haggard, her former arrogance completely gone. The caption read, just back from court. Seeing them like this suddenly makes me feel so wistful. When Wan didn't reply, she simply deleted the photo. She didn't want these people's images to occupy her life any longer. Before long, housekeeper Lu called. Her voice choked. Ms. Win Wan, I heard Mr. Fu was sentenced to 5 years. He arranged for someone in the prison to pass a message saying he wants to see you one last time and to say he's sorry. Win Wan was silent for a few seconds, then said calmly, Lu, that's not necessary. I don't need or want his apology. If you're still living in the Fu family old house, pack your things and move out. I have already rented an apartment for you in a Wanchuan Road complex, and I'll pay the rent. Lu Ma is the only person in the Fu household who truly cares about her. She couldn't let Lu Ma be implicated because of Fu Jinchin. Miss Wenwan, you really are a good person. Lu Ma's voice was full of emotion. I haven't wanted to stay at the Fu house for a long time. Once I pack my things, I'll move over. After hanging up, when Ruan's phone rang again, an unknown number, she hesitated for a moment, then answered. A mellow male voice came through. May I ask if this is Wen Wan? President Wen. I'm Lu Qingyu from the Lu Corporation. Pardon the intrusion. I'd like to discuss potential cooperation between the Wen and Lu companies. Wen Wan was not unfamiliar with the name Lu Qingyu. He was a well-known young talent in the business world, famed for his keen eye and low-key manner. Mr. Lu, you are too polite. May I ask what area of cooperation you have in mind? When Ruan's tone carried a hint of professional aloofness. On cooperation for new energy projects. Lu Qingyu's voice was very magnetic. I've noticed Wen's recent moves in the new energy sector, and Lu's also planning in that area. I think we could form a strong alliance. I wonder if President Wen has time tomorrow for a face-to-face meeting. Sure, Wen Wan agreed readily. Tomorrow at 10:00 a.m. Wen Group conference room. The next morning, Lu Qingyu arrived at Wen Group punctually. He wore a light gray suit and had an elegant bearing. When he saw Wen Wan, a flash of admiration crossed his eyes before he regained his composure. President Wen, I've long heard of your great reputation. Mr. Lu, please sit. When Wan motioned for his assistant to pour tea regarding the new energy project. Does Lu have any specific plans? Lu Qingyu took out a document and handed it to Wen Wan. This is our preliminary cooperation proposal. Wen Shi has advantages in technology research and development, and Lu Shi has resources and market channels. If we cooperate, we can surely seize the market opportunity. Wen Wan carefully flipped through the proposal, and the more she read, the more impressed she became. Lu Qingyu's plan was very thorough, not only balancing both parties' interests, but also proposing many innovative ideas. Mr. Lu, your proposal is very sincere, and I highly approve. Wen Wan raised her head and gave Lu Qingyu a genuine smile. However, I have a small suggestion regarding the profit distribution of the project. The two of them conversed happily. What had been planned as a 1-hour meeting lasted a full hour. As they were leaving, Lu Qingyu looked at Wen Wan with a hint of admiration in his eyes. Ms. Wen, it was a pleasure working with you. I wonder if you have time tonight. I'd like to take you to dinner, and while we're at it, celebrate our successful cooperation. Wen Wan was momentarily taken aback, then smiled and said, Sorry, Mr. Lu, I have to attend the launch ceremony of the Women Entrepreneurs Fund tonight. Maybe another day. I'll treat you then. It's all right. Work comes first. There wasn't a trace of disappointment on Lu Qingyu's face. I was invited to the launch ceremony too. See you tonight at the evening launch ceremony. Wen Wan, speaking as an initiator, when enthusiastic applause from the audience. She stood on the stage looking at the hopeful faces below, her heart full of emotion. She had once been one of them, struggling in hardship and longing for a glimmer of light. Now she finally had the ability to become that light for others. After the ceremony, Qingyu walked up to Wen Wan and handed her a glass of champagne. President Wen, your speech was wonderful and very inspiring. Thank you. When Juan took the champagne and lightly clinked glasses with him. President Liu, you came too. Why didn't you tell me in advance? I wanted to give you a surprise. Lu Qingyu smiled. Speaking of which, I know Fu Jingxin, but I have never approved of his character. When he started his business, I advised him to cherish the people around him. But unfortunately, he didn't listen. When Wan had expected Lu Qingyu to know Fu Jingxin, but she didn't want to discuss him any further. So she changed the subject. Mr. Liu, regarding the follow-up details of the new energy project, we can arrange for a team to connect as soon as possible. Good. Lu Qingyu nodded. But no matter how busy you are with work, you must remember to rest. I know a very distinctive tea house with a tranquil atmosphere. Next time you have time, I'll take you there. When Wan looked at the sincere expression in Lu Qingyu's eyes and did not refuse. Sounds good. I'm always up for it. In the days that followed, when Wan threw herself wholeheartedly into her work, the collaboration between the Wens and the Lus progressed smoothly, and the new energy project was quickly implemented. The Women's Entrepreneurship Fund also helped many female entrepreneurs, and when Ruan's name gradually became synonymous with independence and self-reliance. That day, when Wan received a call from the prison, it was by Ruashi. She hesitated for a moment, but answered. On the other end came by Ruashi's hoarse voice, tinged with remorse. When Wan, I was wrong. I shouldn't have taken what was yours. I shouldn't have driven a wedge between you and Fu Jingxin. I thought a lot while in prison and finally understood how foolish I was before. When Wan felt nothing stir in her heart. It's good that you know you were wrong. Reform properly in there and start anew when you get out. I will. Gratitude filled by Ruashi's voice. When Wan, thank you for not wiping me out completely. I heard you established an entrepreneurship fund. When I get out, could I apply? I want to run a small business of my own and not depend on others anymore. Okay. When Wan agreed readily, as long as you meet the criteria, the fund will definitely support you. After hanging up, Lin Wanqing came in holding a magazine. Wan, you're on the cover. Business Women. The headline is From Abandoned Wife of the Elite to Business Queen when Ruan's Phoenix Path. When Wan took the magazine, on the cover, she was wearing a white suit, her gaze steady, her smile confident. She flipped through the article inside. It detailed her experiences without wallowing or complaining, only a release from the past and a look toward the future. That's written pretty well. When Wan said with a smile, by the way, Lin Wanqing, how's your design studio doing? Is the funding enough? Lin Wanqing's face broke into a happy smile. Thanks to your funding support. The studio is already on track, and we've landed several big orders. Wan, I really thank you. We're friends. No need to be so formal. When Wan patted Lin Wanqing's shoulder, come home for dinner tonight. My mom made your favorite braised pork. Sure, I've been wanting to try Auntie's cooking for a long time. Lin Wanqing agreed. Happily that evening, the Wen family villa was lively. Wen Jinhai and his wife watched when Wan and Lin Wanqing chatting and laughing, their faces full of gratified smiles. Lu Qinyu had also come. He brought a bottle of red wine and personally cooked a steamed fish, which tasted delicious and won everyone's unanimous praise. After dinner, Lu Qinyu walked when Wan back to her apartment. When they reached the bottom of the building, Lu Qinyu looked at Wen Wan, his eyes full of tenderness. Wan, I know saying this now might be a bit sudden, but I still want to tell you that I like you. It's not out of pity, nor because of your status. What I like is you. I like your strength. I like your kindness. I like everything about you. I hope for a chance to stay by your side and protect you. When Ruan's heart instantly raced, she looked at the sincere gaze in Lu Qinyu's eyes and recalled his companionship and support over the past few months. He had never questioned her past. He was simply there quietly whenever she needed him. Lu Qinyu, when Wan took a deep breath, a radiant smile spreading across her face. I need a little time. I'll wait for you, Lu Qinyu said with a smile. As long as it takes. Watching Lu Qinyu's departing figure, Wenwan felt her heart fill with warmth. She knew the wounds of the past had slowly healed and a new life was reaching out to her. Back at her apartment, Wenwan went out to the balcony and looked up at the stars. They were bright, just like when her mother taught her to recognize constellations years ago. She took out her phone, flipped through a photo of her mother, and whispered, "Mom, I'm doing well now. I have dad, friends, and someone worth looking forward to. Don't worry. I will live well and make a life that's truly mine." Her phone suddenly received a text from Lu Chenyu. "Get some rest early. Good night. Tomorrow morning, I'll wait for you at the cafe under your office building. Let's have breakfast together." When Wan looked at the message and a sweet smile appeared on her face, she replied with a single okay, then closed the window. Lying in bed, when Wan closed her eyes, she was no longer the humble wife who revolved around Fu Jinchen, no longer the woman who could only silently shed tears when wronged. She was Wen Wan, CEO of the Wen Group, a role model for many women, and most of all, herself. What has passed is past. The future is coming. When Wan knew that her life was only just beginning. Bonus chapter. At the 1-year anniversary celebration of the Wan Group and the Lu family's joint new energy project, when Wan delivered a speech as co-founder, she wore a champagne-colored custom gown, her long hair loosely up, a simple pearl necklace at her throat. It was an anniversary gift from Lu Chenyu. It was said that pearls were his mother's favorite jewelry in life. He had specially sought out a South Sea pearl, warm and lustrous like his gaze. This project reaching this point is thanks to the team's efforts, and even more to Mr. Lu's trust and support. When Wan turned to look at Lu Chenyu in the front row, when their eyes met, both couldn't help but curve their lips slightly. A good-natured ripple of laughter came from the audience. Vice President Shang even led the applause, his eyes full of relief. Everyone knew this iron lady of the business world had finally found someone who could stand beside her. At the banquet after the ceremony, Lu Chenyu walked over, holding 2 glasses of fruit wine, avoiding the champagne. "The doctor said your stomach hasn't been good lately. Avoid alcohol." He naturally took the empty glass from Wen Ruowen's hand and handed her the fruit wine. "Try this. Peach flavor, almost no alcohol." Wen Ruowen took a sip. The sweet but not cloying fruity aroma spread across her tongue. "You're even more thoughtful than my assistant." She remembered being hospitalized for acute gastritis 3 months ago. Lu Chenyu had canceled an important overseas meeting and stayed with her for 3 full days. Even the nurses thought he was her husband. "That's because I want to make that status official." Lu Chenyu set down his glass, took a velvet box from his pocket, and half knelt before her. The surroundings instantly quieted. Lin Wanqing's hand, holding her phone, trembled with excitement. And when Jin Hai even stood up, his eyes filled with expectation. "Ruwan, Ruwan, the first time I saw you in the conference room, I was drawn to the light in your eyes. Not the sharpness of the business world, but the gentleness hidden behind determination." Lu Chenyu opened the box to reveal a uniquely designed diamond ring. The band was shaped like interwoven vines, set with a pear-shaped diamond. "I don't want to be just your business partner. I don't want to only wait for you downstairs at the cafe for breakfast. I want to be able to cook a bowl of porridge for you every morning, to be a shoulder for you when you're tired. Will you marry me?" Tears fell from Wen Ruowen's eyes without warning, not from being moved, but from feeling secure. She remembered the pigeon egg diamond ring Fu Jingxin had once given her. At the time he had said, "Marrying you is so you can wait on me." The man before her said, "I want to cook a bowl of porridge for you." She nodded hard. Her voice choked. "I will." The moment the ring slipped onto her finger, warm applause erupted around them. When Jin Hai stepped forward and patted Lu Chenyu on the shoulder, his voice a little hoarse, "My daughter has suffered too much before. If you ever dare mistreat her, from now on, I won't spare you. Dad, don't worry." Lu Chenyu held Wen Ruowen's hand and said earnestly, "I'll spend my whole life proving that you were right to entrust her to me. The wedding was set for 6 months later, to be held at the seaside chapel that had been Ruowen's mother's favorite before she passed. A week before the wedding, when Ruowen received a call back from the prison, an officer handling Bai Ruashi's case, Miss Wen, Bai Ruashi will be released at the end of next week. She asked us to tell you that once she is settled, she will come in person to thank you. When Ruowen was somewhat surprised, Bai Ruashi had behaved well in prison, applied for sentence reduction, and was released 6 months early. She had contacted Wen Ruowen through the foundation office, saying she wanted to open a small floral studio and had already submitted a startup application. Wen Ruowen had only told her assistant to process the paperwork per routine. She hadn't expected the application to actually be approved. No need for her to go out of her way. Wen Ruowen thought, I'll go on the opening day of her studio. After she hung up, Lu Xingyu wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on the top of her head. Was that the prison? He understood Wen Ruowen's reservations and added, I'll go with you, not to watch over her, but to accompany you. Wen Ruowen turned and wrapped her arms around his waist, her nose rubbing against his shirt. Lu Xingyu, do you think I'm too soft-hearted? Back then, Bai Ruashi hurt her like that. Yet she had still given her a chance to start over. It's not softness, it's clarity. Lu Xingyu gently patted her back. You haven't forgiven her. You've let your past go. That's the hardest thing to do. Bai Ruashi's floral studio was located in an alley of the old district. It wasn't large, but was arranged very cozily. On the opening day, when Wan and Lu Qingyu arrived on time, Bai Ruashi wore a simple cotton linen dress, her hair tied in a ponytail. The meticulous makeup of the past was gone from her face, replaced by a more down-to-earth look. Mr. Wen, Mr. Lu. Bai Ruashi's voice was a little nervous as she handed over a wrapped bouquet of sunflowers. I grew these myself. The flower language is rebirth. It's for you. When Wan took the flowers and smiled, Congratulations, you've begun a new life. She noticed a photo on the studio wall, a picture of Bai Ruashi with a little boy. Is this your son? At the mention of her son, Bai Ruashi's face softened into a gentle smile. Yes, he's 4. He'd been with my parents until now. I just want to earn money properly and bring him to me. She paused, then said sincerely, President Wen, thank you for your fund, and thank you for not making things irreversible back then. I was too confused before, treating men and vanity as everything. Only now do I understand how solid it feels to stand on your own. When Wan didn't say much, she simply handed her a business card. If you run into difficulties, you can call this number. It's my personal assistant. She'll help wherever she can. As they left the studio, Lu Qingyu holding Wen Ruan's hand, they passed a newsstand on the corner. When Wan casually glanced at the headline of a financial tabloid, the title was striking. Former Fu Corporation President Fu Jingshan released after serving sentence. Selling grilled sausages on the street to make ends meet. The accompanying photo showed a man in a faded jacket and a flat cap handing a sausage to a customer, stooped and entirely lacking the vigor he once had. Lu Qingyu followed her gaze and gently squeezed her hand. Shall we go take a look? When Wan shook her head and turned toward the car parked by the roadside. No need. Her voice was soft, yet held an unprecedented sense of relief. He chose his own life. It no longer has anything to do with me. The car left the old city. Sunlight streamed through the window onto Wenru En's face. Lu Qingyu turned on the music, her favorite piano piece. The wedding dress fitting is scheduled for tomorrow morning. The designer said the newly revised gown is ready. Want to go see it now? Now. Wenru En raised an eyebrow. Aren't you going to the office? My fiancé is more important than the company. Lu Qingyu turned his head and winked at her. Besides, I've already told my assistant this afternoon I belong to you. In the bridal shop's fitting room, when Ruin put on the gown with the train and froze when she turned to look in the mirror. Tiny gardenias were embroidered along the neckline. the flowers her mother loved most and the ones she used to plant in the yard as a child. Lu Chenyu stood behind her and said softly, I asked Dad, your mother loved gardenias when she was alive, so I specifically asked the designer to add them. Warm tears fell from Wenru An's eyes again. She remembered her mother gripping her hand on her deathbed and saying, Ru and one day find someone who'll keep you at the center of his heart. Now, she had finally found him on the wedding day. The seaside breeze was gentle and the church bells rang sweetly. Wenru and linked arms with Wenxinhai and walked step by step down the aisle toward Lu Chenyu, waiting at the end of the red carpet. He wore a crisp white suit and looked at her with focused eyes, as if gazing upon the most precious treasure in the world. As they exchanged rings, Lu Chenyu's fingertips trembled slightly. Ru and his voice carried through the microphone across the entire church. I used to think the best kind of love was an equal match. Now I understand the best love is knowing your strength and feeling for your past. For the rest of my life, I will accompany you to see the world's sights, and I will shelter you from wind and rain. When Ruin smiled through her tears and squeezed his hand back, Lu Chenyu, thank you for coming into my life and showing me that being loved doesn't mean having to sacrifice yourself, but being able to be at ease and be yourself as the sun set. The guests raised their glasses to celebrate on the lawn by the sea. Lin Wanqing looped her arm through Wan and pointed toward the distant water. Look, today's sunset is exactly the same as the one we saw in college. But back then, your mind was full of Fu Jingshan. You had no interest in the scenery. When Wan followed the direction she pointed, the sunset dyed half the sky red and the sea shimmered. She turned to look at Lu Qingyu, who was chatting with Wenjin Hai. He seemed to sense her gaze and turned to give her a gentle smile. Yeah, I was so foolish back then, when Wan smiled softly. But now it's good. Everything is just right. The sea breeze blew from afar, carrying a salty, humid scent and bringing Lu Qingyu's voice. Wan, come feel the sea breeze. Don't stand too long and tire yourself. When Wan answered and walked toward Lu Qingyu, sunlight fell on them, stretching their shadows very long, nestled closely together, never to part again. Later, when Wan would occasionally hear news of Fu Jingshan from Lin Wanqing, he had sold sausages, delivered takeout, and finally moved bricks at a construction site. It was said Xiaolon had suffered a stroke and was bedridden, supported only by his meager income. By contrast, Ruoxi's floral studio fared better and better, even hiring several women released from prison, becoming a successful case supported by a fund. Wenruan and Lu Qingyu's married life was simple, yet full of warmth. He remembered that she didn't eat cilantro, would leave a light on when she worked late, accompanied her to sweep her mother's grave, and patiently listened to her childhood stories. She also watched his favorite car races with him, helped him analyze problems, and offered suggestions when he hit a bottleneck at work. One weekend morning, when Wan was preparing breakfast in the kitchen, when Lu Qingyu hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Wan, he said softly, let's have a child. When Wan was momentarily stunned, then smiled and nodded. Okay. Sunlight poured through the kitchen window, falling on them warm and dazzling. When Wan knew that those dark pasts had long been gently smoothed by time, after weathering the storms, her life had finally welcomed the most beautiful rainbow.